Okay, so for today's session, we're going to be going over SciENcv, which is the way that you create your biosketches for especially NSF and NIH, although it's sometimes used for some other funders as well. So this is the main SciENcv webpage, and to log in, the two main choices that people tend to use are ERA Commons, which if you've applied for NIH funding, you may have set up already, or the NSF login. If you're making a biosketch for NSF CAREER, this is probably the one most relevant for you. There are other options if you're doing this for some other funder, or you may have some other means of logging in. Once you log in, often you'll be taken directly to this page. Okay. Sometimes you may instead be taken to the My NCBI main page. To get to the SciENcv page, just go down over here to the lower right where there should be a Manage SciENcv page. If you've never logged in before, this may look pretty blank. And so the first thing you're going to want to do is set up your profile, including your name and your affiliation. Most importantly, though, is this ORCID ID line. We pretty strongly recommend that you link your SciENcv account to your ORCID account. In fact, if you are applying for NIH funding, this is already mandated, and we expect it to be rolling out for other funders as well. You can change this information by clicking Edit, and if you have it linked to your ORCID ID, there's going to be an option here to do that. If you've never heard of what ORCID IDs are before, they're kind of like a fingerprint for especially science publications. So there are too many John Does in science to keep track of whether the John Doe who wrote this paper is the same John Doe who wrote that paper, and that's the problem that ORCID IDs solve. So if you look at publications, especially in the sciences, after each name, there's this little green circle, and that will tell you that person's ORCID ID. So this is mine. If you put next to it, you can see the ORCID ID. And so if you've published in certain journals, you may already have an ORCID ID set up. Okay? And you can log into ORCID ID, and it will try to automatically draw your publications if you've never set it up before. Okay? We strongly recommend keeping this up to date because, as I said, this is starting to become a requirement to link your ORCID ID to your biosketches. Within ORCID ID, you can keep track of your employment, the positions you've held before, your education, where you got your PhD. You can also put in professional activities, funding, and this works on your publications. It's important to note that anything in ORCID ID doesn't have to be public, okay? So you can set visibility for everyone, for trusted parties, or just for you. So if there's something that you want to be able to be put in your biosketch but you don't want the world to know, that's still okay. So if you're watching this at home, you may want to pause the video, get everything set up in ORCID, and then get it linked here, and then restart. Okay. So now that you've got that, how do you actually go about using SciENcv? Okay. To make a new document, you click New Document. You would have to give it a name. And then there's the document types. So if you're applying for NSF CAREER or any other NSF funding opportunity, you'll be using this for two things: your biosketch and the current and pending other support. There's also right now an NIH biosketch and an IES biosketch options. These sometimes changes in time. So let's say I want to make my NSF biosketch, okay? And then now that we've done all that work to link to our ORCID, let's use it. So the data source, you can choose an external data source. If you have applied for NIH funding before, you may have ERA Commons set up. But what you should have here if you link your ORCID is your ORCID. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and say, draw my information from ORCID, and we'll click Create. It usually takes a minute or two to make your document. And then once it's made, it automatically puts you in there. Okay? Even if it's drawing from ORCID, you can still edit things. So there's still an edit box here. Okay? So title of the document, meaning it did not pull my position in, so I would have to edit and put that in. So. So here, for example, I'm editing that. And what I want to note is, now that I have that information in here, it went ahead and now shows up there. And you can see that all of the required fields are here now. The one thing that I can't just randomly update is this ORCID ID. That has to be the one that is linked to my profile. Since it's linked, my professional preparation, appointments, and positions are here. I can delete anything if I don't want to have that on there. And then products. So here is where for the NSF you can choose what publications or other products you want to have there. So you can choose up to 5 closely related and up to 5 other ones. So to do that, you click it. At first you might panic because there's nothing in there. Didn't we just do all this work with ORCID? If you click ORCID, it should bring up all of your other publications that ORCID knows about. So you can select your up to 5 and continue. And same thing for the other products. So you can select up to 5 and continue. Okay. Here's the certification here. And then when you're done, you can view draft or you can download a PDF. You have to do the certification that you everything's honest and accurate. And then here would be your already formatted biosketch. Okay. So the font size, the columns, all of that according to the NSF rules. And so you can see here, and the certification is at the end as required. So that's the easiest way to make the biosketch. And one nice thing about linking ORCID is, of course, as you publish and use your ORCID ID, it goes into your ORCID account and then it'll automatically be there for the next time you need to generate a biosketch. The other type of document that I mentioned that you would need for NSF CAREER is the current and pending support. And here, very often, people end up starting with a blank document, especially if it's their first NSF grant. And again, you can edit here, and then here are your proposals and active projects. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions about using SciENcv, any problems setting up your account, please feel free to reach out to the Office of Research Development.